Welcome to tutorial 6, Basic Shape Grammar. In this video tutorial we are going to recreate this building here in CGA code, but you can of course also download it from the Resource Center, tutorial 6 Basic Shape Grammar, download the project, link it into CityEngine, and look at the last scene file in here. But before we now start and actually code the building, let's look at a few tricks which I'm usually using for the most efficient coding. So I'm going to select this building here, open the model hierarchy, this window here, with first a dark gray canvas. Then I'm going to select or click this button here, which is the inspect model mode. So I'm entering the inspect model mode, and now here in the model hierarchy you see that a few nodes have been generated or visualized. So if I'm zooming in, we see that we have a lot, a building, front facade, side facade, and so on and so on. So this is actually the way CityEngine created this 3D model in the viewport according to the CGA code, which was applied to the footprint with a rule file. So if I'm opening the rule file here by clicking on the rule file, on the rule file link, I can visualize the code in here. We have seen before there's a node-based or visual representation of the rules, but there's also a text-based, and this is the one I'm going to use for the code creation. Now I mentioned there's a few tricks, so let's actually minimize the code again and even these out. Now you have seen that something popped up in the viewport when I clicked the lot here, and what you see here is the visual representation of the so-called scope. The scope is like a bounding box for the shape which you are currently working on in the code. So the scope can be either two-dimensional, or it can also be three-dimensional. Actually it is also it is always three-dimensional, but the scope is one of the most important concepts which you have to use if you want to learn how to code CGA. Now here you see the little GUI button which activates and deactivates the shape scope visualization. Then there's the shape pivot, which is currently the same as back here, so nothing changes there. And then there's also that's a little bit advanced, the trim planes visualization in here. So let me quickly hide, let's do it like this. Hide all the rest and quickly create a new rule file. I'm not going to save this one, but I'm going to create a new rule file from scratch. So this is the simple building again.cga, and I'm going to use this on one of the lots right next to this building. So I'm going to use this footprint here, and I'm going to assign the empty rule file to this building. I'm getting a little error, but that's okay. So let us start with the start rule. At start rule, and I'm calling the start rule lot. This is usually the very default. So I'm going to just write x dot here. This means that I'm writing all the geometry from the incoming shape into a new shape, and I'm naming this shape just X. The point usually means that I want to stop the execution at the end and don't continue. We're going to use this a lot in the upcoming minutes. So I'm going to save. Actually, let me add here a color operator and say color RGB, so that must be red, and select the building here, the building footprint, and press generate. Now I can do the same thing with the model hierarchy in here. So let me select the model here, go into the inspect model mode, and here you see we have lot, and then we have X as the final geometry which is written out or which is visualized in the viewport. Now obviously if I went in and would rename this to ABC, save the rule file, regenerate the model, this here would adapt. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our first attribute here. An attribute called building height with a default value of, let's say, 20 meters. Now, how can I actually create a building which is 20 meters? For this we have a specific operation which is called extrude. So I'm going to extrude in the vertical direction. Actually it's world.y, so it is extruding exactly vertically up, and I'm going to use this attribute as the value. Save, and I'm going to name this mass, or let's call it building mass, and save the rule file again and regenerate the model. Now you see that we have lot and then we have building. Okay, so that makes all sense. So let's continue. The next thing, actually let me continue and create a new rule. So you see that any number of rules can be generated, and I can just go on and pass on rules or call different rules from any point in my code. So in here I'm using another operation, which is the component split, and this actually splits off different faces based on some inputs. So I'm going to choose all the side polygons of this mass, and I'm going to name them facade, and then I'm making this this vertical pipe sign which says to me I want to continue, and then I'm going to choose top, and the top will obviously be a roof. So what we have done here is, from the geometry which was created, we've selected all the side faces or all the side shapes and defined them as facades, and all the top polygons, there's just one. There would be also a bottom one, but we are not calling this, so this shape will get deleted afterwards. The top shape is roof. Now you see here I did not put a point here, and on the left hand side we get a little warning, so that means undefined rule roof. Now that is nothing which matters, but so I can easily go and continue and generate these the building again, so nothing will happen. But it's just if you're because these rules are not defined as a rule themselves. So this is a rule definition and this is just missing. So I'm just going to continue with the roof here, and I'm going to go ahead and directly finalize the roof. So in the assets folder here we have under roofs we have a roof.tiff. I can visualize this file right here, and you see that it is a picture. So this is a roof picture, and I want to use it and map this directly on top of the building as a roof. It's a very simple roof, so I'm going to use it just that way. So now I can drag and drop this roof.tiff into my rule, and since it is recognized as a texture, it will automatically create the appropriate CGA code for me with the correct path for the file. So this is perfect. Let me go in and add something more, because CityEngine does not yet know how I want to project this building onto the geometry, so we have to define this. And for this there's also another CGA operation, and this is called setup projection. Now sometimes it may happen that you don't know all the precise or or the precise name of the operation. So you can also go ahead and just create or write a few of the characters and then hit Control space, which triggers the command completion. Now this is also something which can also obviously save you some time. So I'm going to double click it, then I'm going to define the UV set, which is the first UV set for the color space. Then I'm going to say, in this case, I'm not going into all of the details, so otherwise you wouldn't have to learn anything more. So I'm going to use scope.xy. I'm going to choose relative 1 and relative 1. Now there is a little error. That's not SY, that's XY. And now also the warning is gone. Yeah. Okay. Oh, let me undo and create some more space here. Okay. Now project UV 0. Okay. There you go. I went out of the edit or the inspect model mode, and here you see that the picture has now been mapped on top of my building. So if I'm editing the building footprint, I can just go in, select the underlying road network, and the whole building will be restructured or regenerated immediately, adapting all the textures and all the side facade polygons. Now I'm not going to dive into too much of the technical detail, because this is just a simple introduction here, but what I wanted to show you is again the setup projection in scope.xy. Now if I'm again entering the inspect model mode and I'm selecting the roof shape here, you see that the scope again is visualized. Now scope.x, that is always red, and scope.y, that is always green. So I am projecting this image in this plane, or yeah, in this plane, and this is the scope's red and green plane. And the dimensions I'm actually using is in direction, in the horizontal direction relative 1, which is exactly the same as scope.sx as a length, and it is also the same as scope.sy in the height. And then I'm actually applying or baking down the UV coordinates or the projection information into the polygon of the roof, and then I'm assigning the texture. So let's continue and work with the facade. So I'm not going to perfectly lay out the code, so I'm just going to continue here. Now often it may happen that you have a different floor height for or on the ground floor than on the upper floors. So I'm going to create another attribute which is called ground floor underscore height, which is in my case 5 meters, and then I'm creating another one, upper floor height, and this is just 3 meters. So we can distinguish between these two geometries, or between the heights visually a little bit better. Now the facade, what do I want to make with the facade? Actually I want to split it into different floors, but at the moment, at this as the geometry is, I want to make a little bit room on the side, or split two shapes off at the very edges of the wall or of the facade to just have some more space for between the edges of the so I'm going to split So I want to go ahead and split two parts off of the sides of the facade, just to make a little bit space between the edges of the actual facade. So I'm not gonna define this as an attribute, and by the way, when I'm visualizing the rule in the inspector, you see that all the attributes which I have defined are now available as attributes in the inspector. So if I'm going to write a function, for example, like my value equals 10, save the rule file, then you see that this value does not appear. But if I define it as an attribute, attr, save the rule file, then you see it appears in the inspector as an attribute. So I'm not gonna use an attribute in this case. I'm gonna define wall side part width, which is, let's say, 1 meter wide. And I'm going to use this in my next split, and I'm going to split this facade. So let me enter the inspect. Ooh, an error. Let me fix this quickly. There you go. Okay, let me enter the inspect model mode again and select one of those side faces here. Now you see again we have a red line and a green line, so that means this is scope SX and scope SY. So I'm going in and I'm writing split in the X direction because I want to split in that direction, and then I'm going to say the wall width part on the side, which happens to be a wall part. Not explaining all the details here. Then I am writing tilde1, which means let's say facade underscore main, and then again I'm going to create this part here. Save, regenerate. Now you see what happened here. So on the left side a wall part was split off. Then on the right hand side also a wall part was split off, but in the middle, which is approximately 1 meter wide, so this is a floating value where CityEngine adapts the value, so I could also write approximately 10, but it's just a short value since the left hand side and the right hand side is already defined. I can just write approximately 1. And this is defined as the facade main part, which is in here. So I'm not gonna mess with the wall parts again, otherwise then texturing them. So I'm going to copy paste the facade main here, and I'm going to split vertically, split in the green direction. And here the first thing which I want to do is I want to first split off the ground floor. So ground floor height gives upper floors. I'm just going to name this shape that way, and then a second split, no, sorry, ground floor height gives floor, then approximately 1 again gives upper floors, and this is a new shape. Now let's visualize that by generating the building, and here you see that one shape has been created for the ground floor, and then approximately one, which basically means the rest, is defined in another shape which is called upper floors. Now let's copy this whole thing here, paste it again, and name this guy upper floors. And here we split again vertically, but this time into upper floor height, and delete the rest. And then here's a new sign, a new little functionality. This is the star. So the star means do the stuff inside the brackets, the curly brackets, as many times as possible. So I'm going to save again and regenerate. And now you see that multiple upper floors have been generated. You see that here a little bit better. Let me hide all the shapes. Okay, now the beauty of this whole process is obviously that if I'm changing the incoming building height to say 40, it doesn't matter how many floors there are, CityEngine will always update the number or the geometry, and thus also the number of the upper floors. And this is done by this little star sign here. So I'm going back to 20 meters and regenerate. Okay, now we are at a floor, and let's go in and split the floors, each of the floors again horizontally. Now we can go in and say split X as many times as possible, and we're going to create another attribute which is, or let's create an attribute which is the tile underscore width, which is I'm going to define as, let's say, 5 meters. So I'm going to create big tiles in this facade. So let's use this tile width and define a tile. So here I'm going to, instead of, let me quickly show you the difference here. So I'm generating the model, and here you see that we have 5 meter wide tiles here, but there's one which isn't 5 meters wide, and this is because I did not define the tilde sign in here. So what the correlation is in this case specifically, actually let me split in X here. Oh, wrong position. I did not define the tile the tilde here. So what this does is the tilde together with the star, they will make a certain amount of full tiles which all are the same width. So let me regenerate this. Actually, I messed up the code here. Why? Yeah, now it works again. So here CityEngine again defines how many tiles there are. So let's continue with all of these tiles. Tile. Now split the tile again. Let's say again horizontally with this structure here, and define new values. Let's say tile side width as 0.5, tile side width and in between that's the tile underscore main. Tile main again gets split vertically, split Y into, let me redefine this as an attribute. attribute called window base height, which is 0.9 meters, attribute window height, which is 1.4 meters, and now split off that way, gives wall window height, gives window, and approximately 1 gives, try to guess it, wall. Let's save and regenerate. Now we see that on all of these tiles we have the base height, which is this high, then the window height, and then the rest, which is wall. Now these geometries obviously change or have changed since there is a ground floor, or between the ground floor and the upper floor. So let's go in and change one of these widths, which was the tile side width, which doesn't maybe not make too much sense. So 5 meters, that should be approximately 3.5 meters. Actually, yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. And in this case, I'm just going to continue with the window rule in here, and I'm going to texture this again. So let me go grab the window texture, or one of the windows here. And now I'm going to use a different function, or create a function which generates me one random or gets me one random image. So the text name, for example, equals file random in this path. So I'm going to copy this, delete this file random, and put it in here. And now the idea is that I'm replacing this number here with a star. So the star in this context means it's a wildcard search and may bring back any of these images here. So it could be a random, or it is a random sample between all of these windows here. So I'm going to have to set up the projection again. I'm going to copy some of this code here, put it in, and I'm going to say XY, that should be correct, and I'm going to texture the shape with the text name. Regenerate the building, and now we see that each of those windows again has gotten a correct or a new individual texture. So now the facade itself looks a little bit uninteresting without the texture. So let's go in and also assign assign a texture to it. Let's find the facade first. So here is the place where we want to set up the projection. And here I'm just going to search the image I want to use. Here is facade, textures, and I'm going to use just simply the brick wall. Drag and dropping this into the rule here, just quickly, and also drag and dropping the dirt map into the code here. So I'm going to do something with those two pictures. Let me comment out this code here. By the way, you can comment out code with either this pound sign or with just 2 times the division sign here. let me code this out. Okay, so I'm going to use not a full repetition of the texture along the whole facade, but I'm going to enter a different value. So we have seen that the image is a repetitive, so I'm going to open it again just to visualize it, and this part is about let's say 50 centimeters high in reality and about 2 or 1 meter long approximately. So I'm going to define this. So this means approximately 1 and approximately 0.5, and this here CityEngine tries to adapt the number of repetitions of the texture. So I'm going to grab this texture and I'm deleting the rest out, assigning this, and regenerate the building, and now we see that the texture has been assigned and repeated accordingly in the given dimension. Now I've taken a second image here, which is the dirt map, so I'm just quickly adding in 2 other lines here. So I'm going to basically just paste what I had in my clipboard just before, which is these 2 lines here, and I'm going to choose the UV set to 2. I'm changing the UV set to the so-called dirt map UV layer, and I'm going to copy this here and then set, this is a little bit special, but material.dirtmap, comma, and then the image itself. So what does this actually do? I am saving and regenerating the building, and now you see I have commented out the texture, so what we see only is what these 3 lines are doing. So again, I'm using the full dimension of the facade for the projection on the second UV layer, which is the dirt map layer, and then I'm assigning the dirt map. And the dirt map actually looks like this. It's quite a low resolution image, but it is adding some dirt, as the name states, onto the full facade. Here it is, the dimension is adapted, so there's always a full repetition over the whole polygon. So let's go in and reactivate the texture and save the rule again and regenerate the building as so. Now this is already quite beautiful, and we have a lot of different attributes now to play with. So I can go in and for example edit the ground floor height, and you see how the number of upper floors is adapted. Or you can go in and for example change the tile width, and so on and so on. Now in the written version of this tutorial, which you find here in the scenes folder, there are more or different ways covered, different elements of how you can write CGA code. So for example, there's also a little topic about how you can embed different levels of detail. So I'm not going to cover all of these steps. Additionally, it's better than you just work through this PDF. A lot of the stuff will be the same as I have just shown you here, but I don't want to spend too much time in this video. So I hope you liked this video too, and let's continue with the next one.